Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's Next Super Stock, a live stream January 19th, 2022. We have a brand new company, a brand new CEO to introduce to you today, which is going to be our next super stock. Marilyn, welcome.
Thank you, Jack.
So for anybody that's brand new to our program, I know we have a lot of new people today. Our goal with Wall Street Reporter's next super stock live stream is to introduce you to those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. So these are companies that have three things going for them. One, they're going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. Number two, they're at a key inflection point in their growth. They're right about to take off. We're going to right at the threshold of explosive growth. And there are multiple catalysts in place which can drive the stock price in the short and near term. And we've already had, about 10 stocks that have increased 10x to 50x in the past 18 months. One of them was also a fintech company. One of our most successful stocks was up 20x. That was a Peak Fintech. It went up from 70 cents to $14, split adjusted. And let's find out if XTM is going to be that next 20 bagger. Maryland, the good thing is we have a great stock symbol in Canada, at least, paid. So investors who want to get paid should pay attention. We're going to run through a quick slide deck to kind of give people the official story. And then we're going to open up for Q&A. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Marilyn, I want to ask you a question just to give people a little taste so that they stay tuned. What's the path, for paid right now to go from, 40, 45 cents? What needs to happen for this thing to be a $5 stock, to be, let's say, a 500 million valuation?
I don't want to be flippant with my answer, but I would say not that much needs to happen. The hard work has been done. We've been in the trenches. We've worked really hard. We've mitigated a lot of risk for investors. If you asked me a year ago, if my mom asked me a year ago, should I invest in XTM? I'd be like, yeah, you should. But here's what we're working on today. We got it all worked out. We've seeded a huge population. We've got thousands of users, we have revenue, and now we have a market ripe for really a perfect storm. There's a real need, which I'll talk to you a little bit about, and a solution that solves it. And the solution is tried, proven, tested, and now we have even more opportunity for further monetization. So I feel like the inflection point is here, and there's no reason why we can't be a billion-dollar company.
Okay, so it looks like we got some people who are following the stock that are kind of agreeing with the point. So with that said, let's do this. Let's get the slides up on the screen. We're going to run through the official story. I'm going to come back with some questions, and then we're going to open up for audience questions. And please, guys, ask your questions. It's your questions, that make these events special. And decide for yourself if XTM is going to be that next 10 bagger or even 20 bagger stock. With that said, Marilyn, let me get the slides up on the screen. And
great, thanks, Jack. Forward-looking statements, there will be some assumptions and comments made in today's presentation. This is just a warning, and please reflect on this in our deck and on our website. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that I would imagine a lot of you know a little bit about XTM. We've had a real faithful following, and we appreciate that. And then for those of you that are new to XTM, I'll give you a little bit of a thumbnail on our company. So we are in the neobanking space, and what we do is combined with a very robust fintech platform, we're able to drive financial inclusion for the hospitality space and the services sector through earned wage and gratuity access. So our solution is an alternative to a traditional bank. We're able to pay out same day. You can transfer money, you can ACH money to each other, you can take advantage of our cashback rewards, all of this through an app and through a card, either a Visa or MasterCard, a mobile wallet, and you're good to go. So our vision is to really be the global leader in providing payments to the service workers ecosystem. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we keep going. Our management team is robust and it's solid. We've got a combination of payments background, hospitality. We also have corporate business. So we're growing this team. This team is growing exponentially, and we will be making some more announcements in the coming weeks. Here's the exciting thing. When Jack was asking me if I feel like this could be a $5 stock, $1 billion market cap, we have $1 trillion playground. So, in 2019, which was pre-COVID, and we expect to get back there, our restaurant sales market was close to $1 trillion. We've got 39 million people in the hospitality, leisure, personal care, delivery service industry. And you and I are going in and using digital means of payment for most of our transactions in this market. In this market that used to be cash driven and now is very digital, it's left a gap with the way people are getting their earnings. So we've got 39 million people in this space. We've broken down the demographic a little bit. We've got people, if we talk specifically about hospitality, we've got people in the front of house, the back of house, we've got bottle service, and all of that brings together a group that's earning anywhere between $1,500 to maybe $6,000 a month. And within that demographic, there's a very substantial group of them, about 80% of them can't afford a one-time $400 emergency. And that's really no fault of their own. It's circumstance, it's the economy, and so on. But we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help solve that. And it's not just the hospitality and personal care services space. It's people in general, society. With less and less in savings and what's happened with the economy over time, $1,000 just, in savings to deal with unexpected expenses is sometimes hard to come by. And this makes this group a predatory, target for payday loans and other onerous types of financial situations where people are suddenly in a vortex that they can't get out of. So how can we provide these people with their earnings the same day? And if we take this situation combined with the fact that in America there's a situation where there is a real shortage of workers, especially in the service space, we threaten to bog down our economy with this labor shortage. So what we feel we have here is a solution at a perfect time, really a perfect storm. So earned wage and gratuity access, getting service staff paid daily, and creating financial inclusion. How? Through an app, a free mobile wallet, and a Visa or MasterCard to enable point of sale and online spending. We talked a little bit about comparable. For a minute, I'm not suggesting that we're at the level of these neobanks that have incredible market valuations at this point. But we're going to get there. We're going to get there really, really quickly. And the reason I say we're going to get there is because, again, we've mitigated the risk. We've spent the last 2 years building a foundation, building a market. We are now the dominant market, the dominant brand in Canada with, again, over more than 80% of the restaurant groups are on our platform. We recently had, we were talking to an investment bank, and as a bit of a test, as they dined around through the holiday season, every restaurant and every place they dine, they went in and asked if the staff had heard of the Today program, and they said unanimously across the board, it was like, yes, we have it, we love it. And that's reflected with the brands that we have on our platform today. So, here's just a snapshot of them. And if you look at some of these brands, you might just be seeing a logo, but really it's a tip of an iceberg. So if you think, for example, in the upper right corner, you see MLSE. MLSE is one of the largest sports franchise organizations in the world. And they're across a number of stadiums. They've chosen XTM to replace cash in their ecosystems. So we are, we're in great company with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, maybe not this year, but Toronto Maple Leafs and the Raptors and so on. This is the company we keep, and these are the organizations that we are currently in. And it wasn't an easy decision either. We were subject to very rigorous due diligence, but we're here now. We're ready to go. Many of these brands are cross-border, and we're moving cross-border with them as we begin our venture into the US market. You might wonder how it is that we make money, for those of you who aren't familiar with XTM. The simple way to explain it currently is 1.54% of all interchange. So when the money in the wallets are spent at a point of sale, either online or in store, we're grossing 1.54%. And the great thing about our model is our customer acquisition cost is very low. $2 is probably higher. Well, it is higher than really, we haven't adjusted our numbers quite yet. And the reason for that is when we looked at those comps and we looked at all of those neobanks, that most of them are out acquiring a per user by per user model. We sign on a restaurant, and depending on the size of the restaurant or the hair salon franchise or whatever that service staff organization is, we're signing on all of their staff at one time. And in some cases, it's 10,000 employees. So our numbers are growing exponentially, and the cost of acquiring those staff is very low. So we focus on two data points. Two data points are very important today. We're going to talk a little bit about tomorrow on the next slide. But the two data points is GDV, so that's our gross dollar value load that we're moving through our platform. So as the economy and as the hospitality space comes back to life and everything turns on, that just goes right up. Our active users are growing at about 15 to 20% per month. So that's growing, and those are the two main data points that we're looking at for our Today program. That's not our vision holistically. That's where we started. When we talk about becoming a billion-dollar organization, this is how we're going to do it. It's through the wage management, yes, and there's two ways to interact with that, and that's either through a personal portal or a unique portal that we set up for each of our organizations where they manage their staff in a very customized sort of way, or through point of sale integrations. And I'm talking about integrations with, all of the point of sale outlets that you or brands that you can think of. Though that's where we're at. So Lightspeed and so on. The Today wallet, that exists, that's running, that's where people are keeping their money. Rewards, cashback rewards as an incentive to spend more money at point of sale, very important. And as we come up call it the sphere, and you hit the tip pool calculator, this is something you're going to hear about in very short order. And let me explain that a bit to you. If you left me a $20 tip, I might not get all $20. I might have to share it. Many restaurants are tip pooling, and they're sharing that with the back of the house, with the bartender, etc. that end number that we pay out, it's very important that that calculation is done properly. So there was increasing demand for us to fill that need and supply that module as part of our ecosystem, and we've done that. We're in pilot with it now, and we're launching that across the board as a separate module for restaurants to use to do all of that messy calculation that they have to do to determine who gets paid what. And it's all, again, customizable. The restaurant can go in, they can use their own point system or percentage system to be able to determine what that number is. Overdraft is another very important feature that we're adding. It's an opt-in. We're not going to charge interest. We'll charge an opt-in fee where you can go into overdraft for those life surprises that maybe you didn't plan for, and you need a little bit of extra this month. But think about it. There's a real incentive because you're now getting paid the same day. There's an incentive for you to have better time and attendance because you know that you're not going to get yourself in a rut. You're going to work a little bit more to pay off for those surprises that you didn't anticipate. A microcredit as well. And what we're really excited about is payroll. So as we enter the different markets, we are doing that on all 50 states through payroll. And we're going to talk about that with our partnerships is the way we're going to enter that. And again, another feature that we're looking at adding in the very near future is full back office accounting for hospitality and service workers so that they can focus on their business and not on the accounting side of things, which is usually not a strength. So through those partner integrations that we talked about, payroll, point of sale integrations, we're looking at onboarding companies that through M&A that we might be able to work with, that we are going to work with, I shouldn't use the word might, that we are going to work with to very efficiently onboard all staff. There's a lot of compliance that's involved in our side of the business, KYC, etc. Timing is another very important component in that ecosystem that we intend to venture into. Inventory management. We talked about accounting and earned wage and gratuity access. 1,800 rooftops we're already 2,000 rooftops in Canada, and we intend to add 1,800 rooftops in the USA this year. So this is the slide where we really have to plan for our growth and be practical about it. But we feel bullish and confident that with our partnerships and with our integrations in place, there's no reason why we can't reach the 2,000 additional restaurant locations and 90,000 employees from QSR to fine dining. And this is again with our partnerships in the USD. And what would that look like for us in terms of revenue? It's a $30 million revenue mark in the US in 2022. And we're going to we are working really hard to achieve that. Our infrastructure is sound. We don't have to go that much wider. We have to go a little bit deeper. And we're building that in the US. We're making sure we tap very heavily on hospitality executives and hospitality staff that understand the business. And we feel confident that we're going to reach these targets. This is a clear representation or visualization. This is where we are right now in terms of penetration, mainly with the gratuity and earned gratuity payout. This is where we are going to be when we combine the ancillary solutions and payroll and gratuity. We will be literally across the continent. So we are, again, very positive about this, and our integrations and our partnerships will be very important in us realizing this goal. That concludes an overview of where we're at, where we're going, where we think we're going to be in the very near future. I look forward to your questions. I think, Jack, you're going to facilitate that for us.
Yes. Okay, let me get this off the screen. Okay, Marilyn, so we got the basic idea. So the slide that kind of got my attention, $30 million potential revenues this year, 22, with the U.S. market. Of course, we got the whole post-COVID reopening trade is happening now. This is what everybody's been kind of waiting for. There's, people have been buying those stocks. And one of the issues you pointed out was, all these service businesses, restaurants, everybody else, they're desperate to hire people, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get people in the door. And I think there's no better incentive than to give people, cash same day. I mean, basically into their, get their tips the same day. I mean, it's a massive, massive benefit. So if you're doing 30 million, if you can get to 30 million revenues this year, I mean, potentially this could be, $1 billion valuation. I mean, we've seen fintech companies valued at, 25, 50, I mean, crazy valuations. We've seen crazy numbers. Your market cap now is, with 60 million. So, let's say not, it's only going to be, 15x, 20x, times that revenues, it's easily the stock could be a 10 bagger. Now you got to get the 30, you got to get that 30 million revenues. That's going to be the big thing. Understood.
And we will get there through M&A and organically. We'll do it both ways for sure. And if you were asking me this a year ago, I wouldn't, I would never have made that projection. I mean, it was a dream, it was a vision, but now we have the pieces in place to actually be, and the people in place to actually be able to do it.
Yeah. So what you're doing is really interesting. You have this ecosystem, and I think again, as you get more users into the ecosystem, the thing is going to become much more valuable. How many end users, people who actually have the app, how many end users do you have right now, and where do you expect to end 22 with?
So we're around the 50,000 mark right now in terms of members, and our goal is to get that, to 500,000, 1 million. That's what we're reaching for. And to give you an example of how quickly that can happen, I actually don't have the numbers right in front of me, but last year at this time, we were a fraction of that. We've grown hundreds, thousands of percent in a very short period of time. And again, it's the trajectory and the growth is exponential.
Okay, because again, the reason I'm asking the question is as you get more of these users, obviously the big upside is you can layer on more services.
That's right. Monetization.
All of a sudden, your revenues can go from 30 million, they could go to 500 million based on that same user base.
Yeah. So think about it. At 500,000 users, and you offer a feature, for example, call it opt-in microcredit for an extra $2 a month, and you get, call it maybe half of your user base decides to opt in for that. You're looking at an additional 500,000 a month in revenue. So the numbers can grow quite quickly, and that was always our goal. Our goal was to create zero friction and to get as many people on our platform as possible, and we achieved that. That was our goal. We achieved it. Now it's about monetization. So it's about offering, and I certainly I'm not talking about gouging or anything like that. I'm talking about offering more value. As we become a tool for financial inclusion for this group, these service staff that are working so hard and that we rely on so much in our economy, we only want to make their lives better, richer, more robust, and we want to get them to a place where they can buy houses and get competitive loans and so on, and that they're not predators of payday loans.
No, it's definitely an interesting market opportunity because I've lived, I spent like half my life in New York, and I lived in Las Vegas for a number of years, and there, that's a whole service economy, and there's billboards everywhere, payday loans everywhere, because the thing is, people who they work in the service industry, and sure, you can make a lot of money, but then what happens, the way humans are, we make money, then all of a sudden, we live a better lifestyle. Things, so people start spending money, and again, if somebody they have an emergency, all of a sudden, it can make a big impact. So the idea of getting your tips that same day is definitely a big plus. I mean, it could make a big difference in people's lives.
And earnings, Jack. That's what we plan to do is gratuities and the earnings. So if you think about the incentive for that, you've got someone who's maybe they're a millennial or a Gen Xer, and it's Friday and they stayed out late Friday night, but they know they have rent to pay on Monday. And typically they might call in sick on Saturday, but knowing that they're going to get that money that day and it's going to enable them to make rent on Monday is a real incentive to get to work and to feel good about it, to feel like they're in control and that it's not some, just lost cause. So, it's a two-way street, but yeah, earnings, of course, by loading earnings, it's going to increase our GDP exponentially.
What's interesting? I actually just thought about this now, is that if somebody knows that they're going to, like you just gave one example, but if somebody knows that they're going to get paid that same day, I think they're motivated to work harder, to do more, because it's tangible. It's not like some abstract thing next week, whatever, who knows, but they're really motivated to really do a good job that day. So it's a win-win for everybody.
That's right. And studies have proven that it is a real incentivizer for, and if you think about this as well, think about the fact that you're a restaurant and you're trying to attract good staff. And if by offering EWA and EGA, you've got a competitive advantage versus, the restaurant across the street that's paying every 2 weeks. Where are you going to go work? You're going to go work at the place that's offering EWA.
Let's not forget, a lot of restaurants, nightclubs, some of these places are, let's just say not the most financially stable. Some of them are fly by night, and if people know that they're going to get paid that day, it makes a huge difference. Then instead of waiting 2 weeks or whatever the number is,
That's
huge difference. So things are very interesting. Okay. You mentioned M&A opportunities. So you have a foundation in place, right? So like what kind of acquisitions are you looking at potentially?
So, what I'm at liberty to talk about at this point, first of all, I will say that, there will be announcements very soon related to this. Being publicly traded, we have to be careful about guidance and so on. So what I will say is that we are looking at that ecosystem that we showed. And, if it doesn't make sense for us to build it, then we'll buy it. And there are certain, for example, let's talk about payroll. Payroll in hospitality is one of the most complicated payroll applications there is. And I'll just give you my layman's version of that. If I'm working in California and I'm folding napkins, I'm making 1 hourly rate. And then I move over and start serving, that's another hourly rate. And so all of that has to be captured in the IP around that payroll software. So, that doesn't make an awful lot of sense for us to build. That makes more sense for us to partner and or acquire. So these are areas that we're looking in acquisition to buy, and to partner with smart companies that have, a really good foundation. They've got, some revenue. The risk is mitigated almost the same profile as we had even a year ago. And with this powerhouse, if I use the words of Jason Giagrande is one of our executives, and he's very accomplished in the hospitality space, ran NBC Universal's food and beverage service for years. And he says that, and he runs 2 restaurants in New York, in Manhattan at this point. And he says that there hasn't existed for him a one-stop shop, a place where he could go to one place to get best of breed to help him run the operations of his restaurants. That's what we want to do. We want to fill that. We want to be we want to have best of breed solution for all of those cogs in that wheel.
Okay, we got some great questions, audience questions I want to jump into right now. Let me just start with no particular order. Okay, so Sagacity saying, spoke with a real case, I guess a real person in Toronto, and they spoke on how this was much more convenient, how much more convenient this was. Also, it helped them save because they stopped dropping cash at bar. So so that's one example. Jeremy, okay, I'm glad we're also talking about payroll. Okay, this error is huge. Okay, what percentage of customers are returning and for how long on average? I think that's interesting because once you have the customers in, it's very sticky now.
Yeah, so I think this question might be about churn. And so the great thing about our platform and our solution is that it goes with the user. So, if I work at one restaurant, I leave, and then I go work at another restaurant, one of two things will happen. Either that staff person will go to the new restaurant and say, hey, are you using the Today program? So they become our advocate, they become our salesperson, and the restaurant says, no. And they say, well, you got to get it in place. And we've earned a lot of business that way. Or the restaurant says, yes, we're on the Today program. And they can use the same card, the same wallet. They don't need to swap anything out. We can actually pay from 10 or 15 different restaurants to one person if, in fact, they worked at a myriad of different places, which would be unusual, but it's not unusual for them to work at 3 or 4 places. So churn becomes actually an advantage to us because it's something that they become our sales staff.
It's an interesting thing. The thing I love about stocks in the fintech space, things like payroll, whatever it is companies like Square, Visa, all these you have this, it's kind of like I call it like a zero gravity thing. You don't have like capital. You can scale very, very quickly, and you're capturing that percentage of the you call it GDV, the gross dollar value. Sort of you're like a toll collector. So all the cars that pass on that, all the money that passes through that restaurant, that store, whatever it is, essentially you're getting a piece of, which is, it's a very compelling thing. It's I think I've used this example before. I think it was a Warren Buffett, who knows a little bit about investing, right? He's become very successful at it. He loves this type of business model. I think one of the things he used to talk about back in the day was like, the newspaper business. He said, what? It's a great business. And this is before, we had really credit card, all this stuff that we have now. So back then he said newspapers are a great business because every business has to advertise. So, essentially you're getting, a gross profit royalty on all transactions. You're a toll collector on all commerce. And that's what you're doing basically is that XTM essentially is toll collector. You're getting a gross, profit royalty on essentially all commerce in the service industry, whether it's going to be restaurants, you mentioned haircuts. It could be I don't know. There's a million different things I haven't thought about, but there's a lot of stuff.
I love what you said about the newspaper too, because I've never thought of this analogy. These guys keep a book of my metaphors and my analogies, so this is going to be one. But if you wrote a newspaper for one person, it would be a very expensive proposition because you wouldn't get advertisers and so on. We're in a volume game as well. If we have one user, the cost is astronomical, to keep this engine and to keep this platform going. But as the number of users and the volume of GDV goes up, it's no more stress on us. Just like printing 1 million newspapers, you have to fire up the presses anyways.
What's interesting, Meryl, is what you mentioned. It's really interesting because you really, again, this type of business, the business model, we've seen like companies like ADP, whatever. Those have been the biggest success stories of all time. Square, etc. Because you can grow exponentially, and what you have this very interesting thing. I think this is kind of like a hidden value in the stock. I don't think until you mentioned it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Essentially, the user, they have that wallet, and so so if somebody's a waiter at one restaurant, right? They go to another restaurant that doesn't have your service, and now they're going to be pushing. They're like essentially an advocate for you. You have a free salesperson for you to get them signed up. And as we know, this business is very, it's there's a lot of turnover in the service business. So you're the velocity of getting new of these. You're going to have all of a sudden, instead of having 50,000, essentially you have 50,000 salespeople working for you right now, right?
That's right.
These are users, right? All of a sudden, in a year, literally you can. I see where you're getting that 500,000 because these things go exponential. Person goes to one place. They're all people in this business. They're very social, right? I mean, somebody has to be very sociable to be a waiter or any type of service, but you have to deal with humans. So naturally, they're going to be telling their friends, who will tell their friends, and you have this really powerful word of mouth snowball effect, which is, I think it's an incredible, it's like a real supercharger or turbocharger for what you're doing. It's like an incredible thing here. All right, so Jeremy's saying amazing trajectory in Canada. Okay, so right now, all the growth, the big growth, you haven't really done anything in the U.S. till now. The U.S. is the big story for this year, essentially.
It is, and we've been working on it for a year with our partner Bancorp. It's not an easy thing to enter into a new country. It's not just simply crossing borders, but we've done it. We're there. We've ground tested it. We field tested it. We've got cards in operation. And now we have a pent up demand, and it's all about execution. And again, payroll is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, no, I tell you what's interesting. I just thought about this now. Is look, essentially, so the company, all the business was in Canada, right? And as we know, for the last 2 years, Canada was essentially there's no restaurants going on. I mean, essentially, the business is locked down. I mean. And I don't even know if Canadians good tippers. I don't know if they tip. I don't know if it's.
We are good tippers. We're good people.
Right. So it's amazing that the stock actually right now is, if you look, I'm looking from technical perspective. The stock to me looks like it's ready to explode. It's not, but I would think normally, after 2 years of a lockdown, the stock would be like scraping along the bottom, like just like dead because. The business essentially is dead, but no, it's actually looking like it's
yeah, and that's a great point, and that's why I kind of prefaced this whole presentation with the shareholders that have been super loyal to us. But you're right, Jack. Even with the current state of affairs in Canada, we're still moving close to 30 million a month in just gratuities, and that's with heavy lockdowns and so on. That opens up. There's no stress on our system, no strain to grow that. We know based on our data on our full, more robust months, when we had a couple of months that things were fully opened, we will be around 600-700 million in in GDV. So we know it, we've seen it, we felt it, we tasted it, and it just and now we love Canada, of course. Canada is cooking on the back burner. Now what we're doing, and we'll let it catch up when all these reopenings happen, and it's just going to blow right through and create all kinds of revenue for us. But the US is, much less conservative than Canada's been on COVID restrictions and so on. And we see a lot of movement, and that's where we're focused.
Interestingly enough, from what I've seen stories is that, once the reopening happened in the US, restaurants, the restaurants that are open, whatever even place, is that waiters have been getting like enormous tips because people are just so happy to be able to go. So there's going to be some huge action in next year. So I think essentially the stock not only is a fintech stock, but it's a reopening trade stock, which we're just starting to see that happen now. I mean, it's like this is going to be this year, next. Things are really going to start moving. Let's get to another question here. Andre is asking, can XTM wallet hold cryptocurrencies? Interesting question.
Asking for a friend. That's a tricky question. I mean, technically, yes. The banks, are still catching up with their adoption of cryptocurrencies, and we're navigating that. So there's a couple of workarounds that we have in place that we can work with that. But yeah, it's a little on the tricky side.
Okay, but it's another interesting thing is if you're 30 million revenues. I mean, the company really would have tremendous value to a strategic buyer, somebody in the fintech space, whether it's like a company like Square. Actually, I'm sorry. I think Square. I think they changed their name. It's Block, whatever. But you have a bunch of these fintech companies. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of them. I can go through. This is like a whole endless permutations. And once you have this 500,000 users or that number, I mean, that's a very, very attractive number. I mean, that is, that's $1 billion business. And we've seen companies pay massive valuations for private companies. I mean, even in the VC sector. So, I mean, this is something which has, this story has really like all the ingredients in place where it could just like explode. Andre is asking, Marilyn, would love to hear an NFL BBA story. Also, anything you can share on hotels and hospitality status of prospecting.
An NFL BBA story. Well, let me start with the hotels and prospecting. And I'm glad you mentioned this because I wanted to talk about the fact that we are we've got hotels. We've already signed 3 hotels. We're looking at golf clubs. We've already signed some golf clubs. We're looking at stadiums, as I mentioned. So within that ancillary hospitality sector, there's so much opportunity. There's so much to be had there. And I'm going to save the NBA stories and NFL stories for you for another day.
Okay, we have something to look forward to. Kevin is asking, okay, so he wants to know what else is going to be happening in payroll, like in terms of do you think you're going to expand outside of the service sector to, I don't know, like whatever, telemarketing, whatever it is?
Well, the way we look at it is one of the reasons, one of our really important partners asked us, why are you guys so successful? We think we're successful, well, for a number of reasons. We work really hard, but also we're bespoke to the service industry. And especially in hospitality, we really, this is an industry, a vertical unto itself. They speak a different language. They trust each other much less so than they trust outsiders. And so we've hired from within there. The company is owned and led by people in the hospitality space. So that's an important nuance. And we do not want to dilute that. That's a big part of our success. But can we replicate this and clone this for other verticals? 1,000% we can, and it's on our trajectory.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, if basically the hospitality industry is it's in its own like little universe. And if you can essentially own this market, I mean, it would make the company tremendously valuable. Okay, so question from Jeremy. He wants to hear more about integrations like RASI. What is it, RASI? What is that?
RASI stands for Restaurant Accounting Services Inc. It's a beautiful company out of Denver, Colorado. We announced in our Q2 earnings that we'd signed an LOI for integrations, and we have been working very closely with RASI. And yeah, so that is part of our plan, is to work with with RASI and enter the payroll market with partners such as RASI. Again, it makes no sense for us to build that ourselves, to take a year and a half to figure that out, something they've been building for the past decade. So that's a great question. And yeah, RASI is a really strong, very attractive company to XTM.
Jeremy's actually making a very interesting point here. Okay, so basically they're, the best types of business, they address like a pain point, right? Somebody has a serious problem, they make that problem go away. They're willing to pay. So essentially, let's say people in the hospitality industry, this is a pain point, is getting paid. They want to get paid today, whatever they want to, and this is it's a really valuable thing that you offer for them, and it helps get them in the door. So
and that's why when you asked me, Jack, can you see this as a $5 stock? And I talked about perfect timing. I really do believe it's perfect timing. And I'm not patting myself on the back. This company is run by a really strong team of people. I am just one cog in the wheel, but together we are, unstoppable. And again, like I would say, probably for the first time in my life, perfect timing.
Okay, well, this is it. I mean, Marilyn, this is what we look for. We look for those stocks where we come in. I've used this expression. The investors, they want the baby. They don't want the childbirth and the pregnancy. And they want the instant gratification. They don't want to deal with aggravation. So right now, all the problems were the last, in the years of past development. Now, anybody coming into the stock right now, they're getting everything teed up for a 10x upside here. Interesting point made by I guess Agassi. Okay, this guy spent 10 years in the hospitality sector. There's a lot of annoyance and pain in getting paid within that industry. You can wait weeks at times. That's not good. So you're solving that problem.
We're solving that problem.
Or at all. Yeah, I think you're right. So they're right. Mm-hmm. So okay. Okay. So yeah. So again, you make another point. Tips and envelopes are intensive, labor intensive. Okay. So now, of course, everything is going digital. People aren't even using cash anymore. So what you're doing is really becoming much more useful.
Yeah, and if you think about the stickiness of this as well, not everyone loves change all the time, and so if there's been any cases where some of our larger restaurants maybe had some employees saying, "Oh, I miss cash," we worried because we're super customer centric. They came back to us and said, "You don't think we're going back to cash, do you? You don't think we're going to go back to pulling $1 million a week out in cash and stuffing it in envelopes," which is what many of these organizations were doing. If you look at call it maybe 68 restaurants doing under one brand, doing $1 million a week in gratuities, we replaced that cash in that system. So there's no way that day is over. That's not happening. And we happen to be at the forefront, and we intend to continue to add value and to own more and more of the ecosystem as we move along.
Okay, so we've got a couple of people asking, what's the competitive landscape like, especially in the U.S. market? Like who else is out there doing something similar?
Well, we looked at all those neobanks when we looked at the comp slide. So we view them as competitors for sure. If they chose to go into this market, we would have our work cut out for us. We seem to be one of very few that is working specifically and bespoke to hospitality and to services. So we have a bit of a competitive advantage there, but certainly from a foundational and technical perspective, there are others in our space. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, but essentially your focus is on this hospitality kind of vertical, and again that it's its own kind of universe. They speak kind of like a different language than somebody who a tech company, for example. A tech company in San Francisco, their payroll, whatever, fintech, different. They have completely different needs.
Right. That's right. And even when we just talked about the complexity of payroll in hospitality, that again precludes just a general payroll company from coming in and saying, "Here, we're going to fix that for you." We solve a lot of the pain points for that operational, side of the restaurant.
Okay. How much cash on hand does XTM have? What's the financial?
So our cash on hand is about $9 million right now. And we did a raise in the fall. We were open about the fact that we wanted to look at acquisitions, and that's certainly part of our path.
Okay. What is the cost savings seen by members versus traditional banking? I don't know. How would you answer that question? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know that, a member might not have they would probably still have their own bank account. But I'll tell you where some of the savings do come in, and someone alluded to this on earlier, is we've heard the elusiveness of cash disappears for that staff person, where they might have stuck, $1,000, $10,000 under a mattress because they were storing up cash, or they got cash and spent half of it on the way home on beer. That part of it has disappeared. It's more of a real job where you see your transactions. You open your app, you see your balance building, you see what you spent your money on. You can sort, you can do your own reporting and go, "Oh, I spent X at Starbucks. I really need to cut back there." Or "I spent X at Uber Eats." I'm really going to have to watch that. Or it's an opportunity for XTMs to say, hey, wait a second. Most of our members are spending a predominantly large amount of money on rideshare or on food delivery. Let's see if we can negotiate better rates for them. So we're working both ways, but there are ways to save money for sure.
Okay, no, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, this actually, this could have a very positive impact on thousands of people's lives. It's very interesting. Okay, Okay, so we asked that. Okay, so cost savings, we talked about that. Let's see. Okay, Marilyn, what kind of so the company is at the inflection point right now. What kind of news flow can we expect to see in the next 30, 60 days coming from the company?
So, I know for those of you out there that are investors, I think you were a little frustrated because we were quiet for a while. We could announce a new client coming on board every week. We could have done that for the last, call it 12 months, because we've had so many onboardings and so many new clients. But what we're really focused on is material development. And we are excited to say that we are now in a position where we will have material news coming out on a regular basis over the next, call it, 6 months, 6 to 12 months. There's a lot happening. We can barely keep up with all the movement and all the exciting things going on with our company. So I would say stay tuned. There's lots coming down the pipe.
Okay, material news. It sounds like a hint. I don't know. It could be something very big. So we're waiting for. Okay, so there's going to be big news next in the coming weeks and months. But I'm thinking what would be interesting though. You mentioned you have a lot of you're constantly signing up new clients. I'm sure like every week you're signing up. I don't know what it could be dozens, whatever the number is. I think it would be good to have. I think probably investors would like to see maybe once a week or every 2 weeks. You can say, hey, we signed, I don't know, whatever, 12 new accounts. We signed 82, whatever the number is, and here are the companies. It gives people it will give people a sense of insight into the velocity as the company's starting to really scale the business. I think it would be good to have that. I don't know if anybody wants to make comments. Okay, so Kevin likes it.
Kevin Austin says yes. We will do that. What we were feeling like there was a bit of fatigue on is the Canadian side of things, because again, we're dominant here. We're just rolling them out. US, we know you care about that, and that's what we're going to focus on. So every single, you can expect every single new US client that comes on board, we are going to be announcing that. We're going to be letting you know that, because that's where you see our growth, and we want to be able to demonstrate execution.
Marilyn, the pain point for your customers is they want to get the money that same day. The pain point for investors is they want to get news every day. So really, the investors are as desperate for news on a weekly basis, or even multiple times a week, as somebody working in a restaurant to get paid. So it would be very good to have the news. Question: peer-to-peer transaction functionality. Can you do peer-to-peer? You can do.
We do it now. Yeah, we do it now. Yeah, for sure. So, for example, if you're in our network, we have a peer-to-peer transfer. We don't charge for it. You're able to send money to each other, and we're also looking at other add-ons and options to be able to send money out of the network, internationally and so on, because we find there's a lot of people working in the restaurant industry where they might be new immigrants. Maybe the America is not their, is not their home, and they're sending money back home. So we want to be able to facilitate that in a non-predatory, efficient, value-laden kind of way.
Okay, that would be a big plus, because I mean, again, a lot of people in the service business, they're coming from Latin America or I don't know, the Philippines or wherever it is, and there they really have a need to get paid that day immediately, because then they can send money to family. I mean, there's always some family, and they always have extended families that they're taking care of. All other relatives, they're not like Americans who are selfish. We only care about ourselves, but they're taking care of extended family. And there's always somebody always has some issues. Some kid needs braces. Their moped break. There's people have life, and they need to get paid for things. So
Yeah,
it's really,
we all have that, right?
I mean, the company should be like an ESG type of investment, because I mean, what you're doing is actually, I mean, you're really, doing important things, much more, I think, important than, green energy or whatever it is. This is actually, this makes a material difference in people's lives.
And you know what, Jack, that's a really great point too. And that's helped us to attract really great people. Because, people today, especially younger people, they want to work for a company that means something they can get behind, something that's meaningful. And we have we're still under 30, we're around 30 people, but all of those people have a passion and a real love for the company and for what it is we do. So that's helped.
Okay.
Some of them
Now,
are
Marilyn,
turning at me right now.
so for the outside of those investors, a lot of investors watching this, they want to, they care about where the stock is going to be, next week. They want everything to be 10x, in within 2 weeks or less. But can you talk from a big picture standpoint? Like, what's your vision for the company? Where do you see XTM 2-3 years from now? For those, we actually do have some longer term investors watching this. And so what's your vision for the company? Like, how big, how far can you scale this business?
I will say it will be global. We will be a dominant brand for sure in hospitality, and I hope other sectors as well. The management team will be a team that, I will be dwarfed by. It will be a significant management team. This will be, there's no reason why it can't be a Fortune 1000 company. I really, really believe that.
Why
all
not
the fun
500? Why stick with Fortune 1000? Why not Dow 30? Why not Dow 30?
I was trying to be modest, but I really believe that. And one of the main reasons why, Jack, is because we've really stuck to fundamentals. We don't spend money frivolously. We care about revenue. We're very focused on the customer. We stay close to the customer. We have all those pieces in place, and I believe that that's going to make a difference to our future.
It's interesting because like another company that's kind of similar, very different, but was like ADP, or was it Paychex? Those companies, they all started. I mean, it was a new thing back. I don't know, could have been 30, whatever it was, a long time ago. And that business was very, it was like one business at a time, and it kind of grew. And I think ADP was famous for like, hey, we would deliver the paychecks no matter what the weather is or whatever it is. Everything shows. It was a very hands-on, very that became, I don't know if the stock went up, from the beginning 100x. It was one of the all-time great success stories. And this is same thing, except now things happen much faster. Let me see if we have any more questions before we wrap up. So you have valuations. The valuations in the peak in the fintech space are insane. Marilyn, last question I have for you. In your opinion, what would you say the top 3 reasons why investors should consider XTM today?
Easy. It's a $1 trillion market space. If we even just take the hospitality sector on its own, it's a $1 trillion market space. We've mitigated the risk. Your analogy of the baby versus the hard work is over. We've got the technical foundation in place. We've got the human resource infrastructure in place, and we have an unbelievable client roster. So now it's just all about execution in a really big way, and we're attractive enough now to be able to bring on the resources and the brands that really mean something throughout America. So I would say this is a really, and from a valuation perspective, I don't feel that we've caught up. Our value is caught up to where we are, and we've been modest about that. The last thing we wanted to do was be in market and be seriously bloated. But we feel it's the exact reverse, and we're here, and we're now reaching our potential. We're blooming.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to be watching this, who knows when they're going to be watching this video, maybe months from now. But right now, in this point in time, January 19th, 2022, a lot of stocks, the NASDAQ stocks are down, 50% plus. A lot of stocks have taken a hit. The micro caps are down. A lot are down 70% from the peaks of last year. But it's interesting in terms of that XTM right now is actually, kind of like, again, it's in the kind of that middle of that range, especially after having, 2 years of horrible fundamentals. You basically weren't able to do any business in your main markets or previous main markets. So the fact is that the stock is where it is. We can only imagine once, as things open up, that it really is that this is kind of like it's only up from here. So on that note, Marilyn, I want to thank you. And, we look forward to hearing more from you and XTM in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Jack.
The sooner the better. The sooner the better. We need news.
Okay. I hear
Marilyn,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in the next live stream.